What if the you wake up as isn't actually sitting inside your body at all? Think about it. You open your eyes and there's that quiet confidence. I'm here. I'm in my body. I'm seeing the world exactly as it is. But what if that certainty is just a story your mind tells so life feels stable? From the first moment you wake, your brain gets to work like an artist, layering colors, stitching sounds, shaping sensations. You assume you're observing reality, but in truth, you're constructing it. Every moment is being rendered in the private theater of your mind, and this is where the illusion slips in. We grow up imagining there's a tiny pilot sitting behind our eyes navigating this flesh and bone machine. But that character, the little inner operator you believe yourself to be, isn't an inherent truth. It's a model your brain generates to keep you oriented, functional, and sane. The twist? It feels real only because it has to. Neuroscience adds an even sharper twist to this illusion of being inside your body. Researchers found that your sense of self, your feeling of I am here, comes from a small but powerful region called the temporal parietal junction, your brain's built-in orientation system. Think of it as your internal GPS, constantly blending signals from your eyes, ears, skin, and organs just to keep you anchored in one spot. But here's where it gets wild. When that tiny area is disrupted, even slightly, the whole illusion can glitch. People suddenly feel themselves floating above their bodies, looking down from corners of the room, watching their own hands and face from a vantage point that shouldn't be possible. The first time this was discovered wasn't part of some spiritual experiment. It was a surgical accident. A neurosurgeon stimulated that region with a mild current, and instantly the patient felt her consciousness slip out of her body. She watched herself lying on the table and described the experience as more real than reality. No dream fuzziness, no confusion, just clarity. And this isn't some rare anomaly. Millions of ordinary people report similar episodes during exhaustion, trauma, intense emotion, or those strange moments right before sleep pulls you under. Here's the deeper twist. The brain actually works harder to keep you inside your body than to let you out. One scientist even said, the out-of-body experience isn't the strange part, the in-body one is. Your sense of being located behind your eyes isn't natural. It's constructed. It's maintained. It's earned by constant neural effort. And the moment that system falters, even for a heartbeat, the whole structure collapses. You suddenly glimpse something unsettling but liberating. Maybe you were never confined to your body at all. Maybe the body was inside you the entire time. When the illusion of being inside your body starts to loosen, something deeper steps forward, something older than thought, quieter than emotion, and more aware than the personality you usually identify with. The last section showed that your sense of self can drift beyond physical boundaries. But here's the next leap. What if the self doesn't just slip? What if it can split, multiply, or exist in more than one place at the same time? This isn't sci-fi, it's neuroscience. When scientists dug deeper into the brain, what they uncovered didn't just challenge old assumptions, it blew them apart. It wasn't only that you could feel outside your body. The real shock was the possibility that you might not be a single unified you at all. Back in the 1960s, neurosurgeon Roger Sperry performed a procedure that looked routine on paper. He cut the corpus callosum, the bridge connecting the brain's two hemispheres, to treat severe epilepsy. The seizures stopped, but something else stopped too, the unity of consciousness. These patients didn't simply recover. They began acting like two different selves were living inside one body, each with its own intentions, preferences, and reactions. It was as if two worlds had always been there, hiding beneath the illusion of one identity. And that raises a disturbing, fascinating question. If one cut can reveal multiple yous, was the singular self ever real to begin with? The split brain patients didn't just behave oddly, what they revealed was shocking. One hand calmly buttoned a shirt while the other unbuttoned it. One half of the mind preferred an apple while the other insisted on an orange. Even their dreams, desires, and intentions drifted in different directions. It was like two parallel worlds had always existed inside one skull, hidden behind the comforting illusion of a single me. And here's the haunting part. Both selves believed they were you. Each had its own awareness, memories, and preferences, yet neither knew the other was there. That inner voice you think of as you, the narrator, the observer, the sense of I am, suddenly looked fragile. If one surgical cut could split it, maybe consciousness was never just a brain generated story. Maybe the brain is the structure that shapes consciousness, not the source of it. Just like a prism doesn't create light, it only breaks it into colors. The beam exists before the prism, and it remains after the prism is gone. This same pattern shows up in altered states too. Under the effects of DMT, deep meditation, or profound stillness, the edges of the self begin to dissolve. Your awareness expands, stretches, and blends with everything around you. People describe becoming sound, becoming space, becoming the entire environment, and science is starting to understand why. During these states, the brain's default mode network, the system responsible for maintaining your sense of being a separate individual, goes quiet. Regions that rarely interact suddenly synchronize. Visual areas talk to sound areas. Emotion fuses with memory. Logic melts into pure experience. This isn't consciousness shutting down. It's consciousness reorganizing. It's what happens when the walls of the self soften and the deeper layers of awareness step forward. When consciousness begins to step outside the cage of individuality, it doesn't shrink or disappear. It expands into something far larger. That's the real turning point. Your awareness was never a prisoner inside the body. The body is simply a focal point, a temporary lens through which a much wider field of consciousness experiences the world. When those physical boundaries loosen through meditation, near sleep states, trauma, psychedelics, or even neurological quirks, something surprising becomes obvious. Awareness doesn't fracture, it reveals itself. You're not the mind sitting behind your eyes. You're the spaciousness watching the mind. You're the field in which thoughts arise, dissolve, and reappear. The witness underneath everything, silent, steady, untouched. And once you grasp that awareness can slip beyond the body, split within the brain, or expand outward, you reach a deeper question. What happens when it touches the edge of life itself? If consciousness isn't confined to the brain, then death, the moment everything is supposed to stop, might not be the end. It might be a doorway, a moment when the body shuts down, but awareness doesn't. People who have crossed that threshold and returned describe something extraordinary. At the exact moment the heart stops and the brain flatlines, awareness continues. Clinically dead patients report floating above their bodies, watching doctors work, hearing exact conversations, noticing details they couldn't possibly perceive with closed eyes and no brain activity. And they describe the experience as clearer than waking life, like consciousness without static. Their bodies were silent, but they were more alive than ever. These reports aren't scattered fantasies. They're astonishingly consistent across cultures, religions, and eras. The same themes repeat: leaving the body, moving through a tunnel, feeling an overwhelming presence of love and intelligence, arriving somewhere that feels like home, and the people who come back, they return changed. The fear of death dissolves. Their sense of separateness cracks. They speak about seeing from everywhere at once, as if they suddenly understood their awareness was never limited to a body lying on a hospital bed. Scientific explanations try to reduce these experiences to oxygen loss or brain chemistry, but all those theories fail on one brutal question. How do you see and hear the world when your brain is off? How do you see when your eyes are closed and your brain isn't producing measurable activity? That's the question that breaks every simple explanation wide open. People come back from clinical death describing tools in the room, conversations word for word, specific actions they couldn't possibly observe. Some even return with new information, languages, concepts, mathematical ideas they never studied. If this were just neurons sputtering in their final seconds, the experiences should be chaotic and meaningless. But instead, many of them contain verifiable external details. That alone forces you to admit one thing: something more than dying brain activity is happening. And the simplest interpretation, not proven but strongly implied, is that consciousness isn't produced inside the skull. It just operates through the brain while we're alive. When that connection breaks, awareness doesn't blink out, it widens. A good metaphor is a lantern. The lantern focuses light into one narrow beam. That's your embodied life. When the lantern turns off, the beam stops. But the light itself, it doesn't disappear. It returns to the field it came from. That's why people who come back describe death not as an ending, but as a return, a kind of homecoming. No fear, no body, just an open, boundless clarity that feels more real than anything physical, as if they remembered what they actually are. Not a personality, not a biological system, but awareness itself, borrowing a body for a while. Across these accounts, the same realization repeats: consciousness doesn't end when the body does. It expands when the filters fall away. And that forces a brutal rethink of the old assumption that the brain creates consciousness. Because if shutting the brain down doesn't shut consciousness down, the logic collapses. A more precise analogy is radio and signal. The radio doesn't generate the broadcast, it receives it. Break the radio, the broadcast continues, just no longer through that device. Seen this way, the body isn't a cage, it's a lens. A temporary instrument through which a larger field of awareness gets to experience a human life from a specific angle. Your thoughts, your emotions, your sensory world, those are the ripples created when that larger field of consciousness flows through physical form. And when the form breaks, the current doesn't vanish. It returns to its source. That's why near-death experiences often feel sharper, clearer, and more vivid than life. You're seeing without the distortion of biology. Interestingly, this mirrors something ancient traditions hinted at long before neuroscience existed: the idea of a pervasive field of awareness in which everything appears and disappears. In those teachings, the body was never the soul's prison. It was simply the tool through which experience happens. When awareness peers through the narrow lens of a physical body, it naturally feels separate. A single point, a single identity. But when that lens cracks or falls away, awareness doesn't dissolve. It remembers itself. And modern neuroscience is starting to echo what ancient traditions recognized long ago. The you think you are is not an object. It's a frequency of consciousness vibrating through a temporary form. You can feel this right now if you pause for a moment, close your eyes. Notice the space around you, the quiet presence that doesn't move, doesn't speak, doesn't think. That stillness has been there through every season of your life, untouched by joy, pain, fear, or time. It isn't hiding behind your eyes or inside your skull. It extends outward, blending with the room, the air, the silence. That presence is the awareness beyond the body, always watching, always here, just waiting for you to notice it again. And maybe that's the real purpose of being alive for a while, to remember, to realize that your body is not who you are, but simply where you are for now. A temporary vessel through which infinite awareness gets to taste individuality. Once you understand this, life shifts. It becomes less about survival and more about experience. You start to see every breath, every conversation, every moment as consciousness recognizing itself in a different form. Nothing is separate, nothing is other. And when the filters of the body finally fall away, nothing is lost. You return to what you've always been, the field of awareness that holds every universe, every dream, every version of you that ever existed. So maybe the strangest part of all this isn't the idea of leaving your body, it's the assumption that you were ever trapped inside it. Consciousness doesn't live behind your eyes or inside your brain. It moves through you, around you, beyond you, the same way the ocean moves through a wave. The wave rises, takes shape, crashes, and disappears. But the water was always the ocean. If your awareness exists beyond the body, then nothing in this world is truly separate from you. The people you love, the light in the room, the sky overhead, all of it is the same awareness looking back at itself through different windows. So take a breath. Feel that silent presence that never ages, never sleeps, never ends. That's you, not the mind, not the body, the field everything rises from. And when the filters fall away through beauty, awe, love, stillness, or even death, consciousness doesn't disappear. It simply reveals what it has always been. And through your life, in this moment, the universe gets to know itself.